Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 best fighting games of all time. For this list, we're going over the absolute best fighting games to ever exist. Have you played any of these titles? Which ones had you and your friends going another round or 5? Share with us in the comments below. Number 20. War of the Monsters. As kids, we long dreamed of having our own kaiju-sized fights against friends. Arcade games like Rampage gave us a taste of that, but when it comes to monsters fighting each other, War of the Monsters was everything we had been wanting. Up to 4 players can duke it out while leveling buildings and avoiding environmental hazards. The best part was the diverse selection of monsters to choose, from giant eyeballs to robots to mutant animals and insects. Needless to say, if there was a monster fight you wanted to see, Bug vs. Bot or Sweet Tooth vs. a giant ape, War of the Monsters delivered hours of fun. Number 19. Def Jam Fight for New York. You want a fighting game with some attitude? While the first Def Jam game was a brutal and badass gem of a brawler, its sequel, Fight for New York, was so much better. Just like with the first game, Fight for New York was packed with a roster of 67 fighters. Featuring some of our favorite rappers and hip-hop artists like Busta Rhymes, Flavor Flav, Carmen Electra, Ice-T, and even Snoop Dogg. Come on, it ain't a party without the dog. Of course, with all these music artists came a sick selection of songs to jam to while we deck our friends across their faces. We just wish GameCube players weren't missing so much of the awesome soundtrack. Number 18. Power Stone 2.
Battle begin. Go!
The original Power Stone featured a new formula for fighting games, one that saw 2 characters tossing items at each other and collecting power-ups to finish each other off. Power Stone 2 simplified things by removing the combo system, but offered up other features to make up for this removal. In addition to a handful of new playable characters, as well as most of the original cast being present, it was now possible for up to 4 players to participate in the mayhem, making fights much more chaotic. For Dreamcast owners, this was definitely a game to bring to parties. Number 17. Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. The original Persona 4 Arena was a surprisingly good spin-off for the Shin Megami Tensei series, boasting tight controls, an interactive narrative across its 13-character roster, and a combat system that perfectly translates Persona's style and concepts. So why does the sequel, Ultimax, make it on here instead? Well, for starters, it features more characters with unique playstyles and moves. On top of that, it is much more balanced than its predecessor, and the story perfectly closes the story arc of Persona 4. And this goes without mentioning the fantastic art and animation of co-developer Arc System Works, who you may see a couple more times on this list. Number 16. Darkstalkers, The Night Warriors. For For a time, Capcom was one of the giants of the fighting game genre, particularly in the 90s. In addition to the full realization of one particular franchise, Capcom created another 2D fighter that featured more of a horrific yet goofy aesthetic. The first Darkstalkers featured a small yet humble roster of weird fighters like Morrigan Ainsland, Felicia, Lord Raptor, and, Sasquatch, and you got to witness these beasts brawl it out in some vibrant settings. While it isn't as deep as later Darkstalker titles would become, this one was a great way to introduce new players to the world of fighting games. Number 15. The King of Fighters XIII. Ash Crimson's story comes to an end, and with it comes one of the best entries in this juggernaut of a franchise. This is largely due to it streamlining much of the motifs present in its predecessor, and in its place applying refined versions of some of the series' more popular features. Sure, its story mode is practically impossible to follow unless you're a veteran of the lore, but that doesn't take away from its beautiful visual style and vastly improved controls. Fans will most certainly get a kick out of letting loose with so many crazy, colorful combos, not to mention another chance to check out Mai's magnificent set of, techniques. Number 14. Injustice 2.
What do you have in mind, lady?
How about slaps and tickles at 10 paces?
After the successful reboot of another legendary fighting game franchise, NetherRealm Studios was tasked with creating a DC fighting game. While Injustice Gods Among Us saw monumental success in 2013, its 2017 sequel managed to improve upon the formula while delivering an excellent narrative and borrowing cues from NetherRealm's flagship franchise, who we'll get to soon. As for the roster, well, now you could see Batman and Superman take on the likes of even more heroes and villains like Gorilla Grodd, Starfire, and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Plus, the inclusion of premier skins allowed even more characters to be added without the extra work of having to rebalance the game.
Nice. Pepperoni.
Number 13. Project Justice. Poor rival schools had long been neglected, but Akira's inclusion as one of the final DLC characters for Street Fighter V has helped open some folks' eyes. Whereas the original Rival Schools was more of a traditional fighter with small tag assist elements, the sequel, Project Justice, went a bit more crazy with it. New mechanics like the Party Up and Team Up abilities made fights a bit more based on meter management while creating a visual spectacle of brutal attacks. As for the story mode, events could alter depending on the outcome of certain fights. In other words, losing a fight did not necessarily mean a loss in progress. Crossing our fingers for Project Justice, or Rival Schools in general, to be revived. Number 12. Samurai Showdown. Of the SNK games, Samurai Showdown as a franchise has withstood the test of time thanks to how different it is than most fighting games. The 2019 revival showcased its calling card perfectly. This wasn't a game that wanted you to build up crazy combos. It's a fighting game about patience, acting more defensive as you study your opponent's movements. With even light attacks dealing significant damage, there isn't much room for error here. Find your openings to disarm your adversary and finish them quickly. Needless to say, Samurai Showdown perfectly replicates those classic samurai duels we've seen across TV and movies while offering a complex and risky combat system. Number 11. Tekken 3. The series may still be going strong, but no one can deny that the turning point for this series came when Jin and his fellow newcomers took over. With far superior graphics, a huge boost to the character roster, as well as much greater depth given to the actual fighting, especially in terms of movement. This set the standard for all Tekken games that followed, and remains one of the most successful games under the banner of the original PlayStation. We'll just forget that Tekken Ball was ever a thing. Number 10. Blaze Blue Central Fiction. It was honestly really hard to choose which Blaze Blue game to put on this list. Our original top 10 featured Calamity Trigger, but later entries like Chrono Phantasm Extend and Cross Tag Battle had their own wealth of fun. However, there's something about Central Fiction that keeps us coming back. The roster of 36 fighters featured a ton of familiar and new faces, each just as fun to play as the rest of the cast. Plus, there's that insanely expansive story mode that rivals even fighting games with bigger budgets. It's also the Blaze Blue title that has seen extensive support, unlike the rest of the series, seeing a Switch port in 2019 and planning to implement rollback netcode for the stream version in 2022. Number 9. Dead or Alive 5. Last Round. Even though we would see 2 other versions before this one, Last Round was, and still is, known to be the superior rendition in the franchise. Save for the Xbox 360 exclusive Dead or Alive 4. Last Round was the ultimate revival Dead or Alive had been needing, adding in 4 characters to the roster, expanding upon the cosmetic customization, and improving the visuals by upping the resolution to HD and bringing the frame rate to 60 frames per second. It also featured the same level of action, humor, and sexiness that Dead or Alive has been known for. With the 6th main game being such a disappointment, one can see why folks have flocked back to Last Round. Number 8. Mortal Kombat. Now this is how you relaunch a franchise. Quite literally taking everything back to the beginning, this reimagining not only brought with it the classic characters we all know and love, but surrounded them with an immense amount of bloody and brilliant content. With fatalities and newly introduced X-ray moves that redefined stylistic violence, it had an online mode that had the whole world battling against each other, as well as a narrative that was actually well written and proves that Western fighting games could have good stories. Mortal Kombat 2 may have raised the bar, but this one shot it into the stratosphere. Number 7. Soul Calibur 6. Look, Soul Calibur 2 will always have a special place in our hearts for its visuals, controls, and inclusion of weird guest characters. However, Soul Calibur 4 managed to blow everything out of the water. In addition to strange guest characters like Geralt of Rivia, 2B, and Samurai Showdown's Homaru, Soul Calibur 4 featured an insanely deep character customization, allowing players to create almost entirely new characters or weird renditions of pre-existing ones.
I'll show you. Rise up
And if the regular Soul Calibur story mode wasn't enough single-player content for you, the Libra of Soul campaign offered dozens of hours while centering the story around your custom character. With fantastic controls, a meaty roster, and spectacular visuals to boot, Soul Calibur 6 is the definitive experience in the franchise.
Here you go.
Number 6. Killer Instinct. The revival of Killer Instinct was not an easy road, but the final result made it one of the best fighting games ever made. We'll have a soft spot for the original 1994 title, but the 2013 rendition was practically a pioneer. Killer Instinct provided the same level of hyperactive action fans knew it for, while also incorporating tools and tutorials that helped ease new players into the game, regardless of when they jumped in. Shadow attacks gave players new and sick ways to end combos or string them longer. Simplified ultras ended fights in musical and climactic ways, as did ultimates, and the music from Mick Gordon shines spectacularly. If you love fighting games, you absolutely need to play Killer Instinct. Number 5. Skullgirls.
Ready for your shot?
There are several fighting games in the indie marketplace vying for our time and money, and a lot of them are really great. When it comes to Skullgirls, though, there hasn't been anything like it.
Stop making the incision. Cross. Bandage this.
On top of borrowing and evolving ideas from tag team fighters that came before it, Skullgirls has been the indie fighting game that has only seen more success as the years go by. And rightfully so. The online netcode is some of the best on the market. The addition of new characters expands on new ways to play while offering unique mechanics, and the hand-drawn animation and art style make it one of the most beautiful fighting games you can get.
You're mine. Your Majesty.
Number 4. Dragon Ball FighterZ. Look, Budokai Tenkaichi 3 was fantastic when it came to fan service, but in terms of hardcore fighting, there just hasn't been a Dragon Ball game with as much love and care put into it as Dragon Ball FighterZ. Once again, Arc System Works manages to deliver with exceptional animation and visuals, replicating the look and feel of the anime. FighterZ also featured a unique combat system where pulling off combos rewarded you with the legendary Dragon Balls, eventually allowing you to summon Shenron himself. Couple this combat system with a hearty helping of post-launch support with DLC characters, and you've got a Dragon Ball game that every fan needs in their library. Number 3. Street Fighter II: The World Warrior. The Street Fighter franchise has seen a wealth of great games like Third Strike and the Alpha series. Even Street Fighter V managed to bring in fans, albeit after some drastic improvements were made to its story, content, and quality of life. However, fighting games just wouldn't be where they are today if it weren't for Street Fighter II. Unlike the slow and clunky original Street Fighter, the second game was faster and more visually impressive while allowing players to string attacks together. It set the scene for competitive gaming as well, with some organizations still holding tournaments of the game to this very day. For Street Fighter II, age has only strengthened it. Number 2. Marvel vs. Capcom 2. New Age of Heroes. In case that repetitive title music didn't clue you in, this game will indeed take you for a ride. Despite the recent sequels trying to capture what made this entry so accessible, nothing has quite managed to live up to it. Especially the experience of unleashing the fury of your favorite 3-character tag team and lighting up the entire screen with hyper combos in glorious 2D. With its massive roster containing everyone from Spidey to Ryu, and every A to C-list character in between along with its iconic art style, this was undoubtedly Marvel and Capcom's biggest bout.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure to go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. We know everyone has their favorite Smash game. Speedy players will stick to Melee, while Subspace Emissary fans are still going back to Brawl. Retro fans are gonna play 64 every once in a while, as Smash 4 fans explore the different ideas that game holds. Ultimate, on the other hand, you can't ignore how massive this game has become. Between the extensive selection of stages, the roster of 89 playable characters, the unique take on classic mode ladders, the customizable game modes, and how Spirits throws in more characters from various IPs. Smash Ultimate isn't just a fantastic fighter, it's a celebration of video games as a whole. And even though the DLC is done, we'll be playing it until our Switches break.
Here we go!
In the mood for more awesome gaming content? Be sure to check out this video here on Mojo Plays. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.